It's Monday, and that means it's time for another Monday morning clinic. Today started early, 7:30. This morning started at 7:30 in the morning when we began with an Ocelot introduction. Essentially, Rescate has received 2 ocelots from a zoo that had closed down in Bosque. But when you receive animals, especially feline predators, you can't just throw them all in the same enclosure right away. You need to get them accustomed to each other and monitor behavior to make sure that the introduction is going to be successful and not end up in fighting. For a while, they've had the ocelots in a smaller enclosure right beside the main ocelot enclosure here at the sanctuary, and just allowing the local resident ocelot time to get to know their smells, get to know them before putting them in the same enclosure together. The vet team and the behavior team here at Rescate were both in agreement that they were accustomed enough to integrate one of the females with the male that's currently already in the enclosure. If you've been to Rescate and you stand around the ocelot enclosure for long enough, you will probably have seen Bimo. He is an ocelot that was kept as a pet, and so he's very accustomed to humans, and he loves rubbing up against the fence and really engaging with humans, which is why he was not a candidate for release. The good news about him is he is incredibly submissive. So the team was quite confident that even while they are introducing this new ocelot, there weren't going to be any confrontational problems. And sure enough, they were right. Everything went without a hitch. The female was introduced. They even touched noses at one point, which was really, really adorable. And no major fighting, no major problems. So honestly, a successful morning considering that was all done before 9. Because of that, I was a little late getting to the clinic this morning. And so I walk in and I see 5 people carrying this 3-meter long python all the way up into the clinic. This thing was huge. Apparently it had come in because it was lethargic and not eating. And so they had to run some blood work and just run the average diagnosing tests to see what was wrong with it. This morning I actually got to follow the vet intern as she went and processed that blood work. So I got to see a little bit into the lives of what they do once they take that vial. The next patient was a deer that came from another rescue center. That rescue center sent it over here because they had limited capacity to finish its rehabilitation. So today it was really just bringing it up to give it a quick checkup in anticipation to moving it to a bigger enclosure sometime this week. Unfortunately, Sophie was mentioning that the biggest problem they see with this little guy is that he's too friendly. They hope that once they move it to a larger enclosure and separate it away from the vet staff, it will start to act more naturally and more afraid of humans. But Sophie says only time will tell if this will be a candidate for release. After that, Sophie had a snake to look over. It was brought in by a concerned citizen who had seen it in an illegal pet stand on the side of the road. In an effort to help, they purchased it and brought it here so that it could be released into the wild. The problem with this is that it encourages the sellers to keep illegally trapping these snakes and these creatures. Sophie was telling me that the best way you can actually help these animals in the long run, if you see this kind of behavior, is to call the cops, call CNAC, and actually get them shut down rather than purchasing the snake and bringing it here. That being said, this little guy is saved. So he will stay here for quarantine for about a month just to make sure the interactions with humans didn't give it any problems, and then it will be set to release. Finally, we finished up the morning with a visit from CNAC, which is the government agency here in Costa Rica that works with us on these wildlife releases and wildlife intakes. Apparently this week, they're doing a round of confiscation of illegal pets, which means that Sophie anticipates there's going to be a lot of animals coming in this week. The first of these being this round of various songbirds. Because these birds generally don't come in injured, all they had to do today was a quick checkup to make sure that was the case, and then move them on into a separate enclosure in preparation for rehabilitation. And that's it. Just like that, we hit lunchtime. It was a really busy day and it honestly flew by. But I hope you enjoyed following along with us today. And remember, call the authorities if you see anything illegal going on with wildlife in your area.